How did New Orleans become New Orleans? Did you know that we live in one of the most special and unique cities in the whole country? There's not another city in all of America that is quite like New Orleans. And we're going to find out why. How did New Orleans become New Orleans? Now, we talked about the geography, the land, right? The Mississippi River, the Gulf of Mexico, the swamps, that all had a big impact. But not as big an impact is the history and the people, okay? That's how New Orleans became New Orleans. So we have Native Americans coming from Asia in the Northwest. We have Cajuns coming from Canada in the Northeast. We have French crossing the Atlantic Ocean, settling in Louisiana. And we have Africans coming from the East, settling in Louisiana. All of these people brought with them their cultures. What does that mean, they brought with them their cultures? It means that they brought their music, their food, the way they build buildings, and everything else, much, much more. They all brought it to New Orleans, and those cultures, those ways of life mixed to create a whole new culture, the culture of New Orleans. So let's take a look at the different ingredients that make up New Orleans culture. African culture is one of the most important ingredients to New Orleans culture. All right, many Africans came to New Orleans to work as slaves, and they brought their music and their food with them. So, two foods that are very important in African cooking are rice and okra. Well, guess what? They're also really important in New Orleans cooking. So, Africans brought not only those ingredients, but also those recipes and those skills that they had at cooking these ingredients and growing these crops with them to Louisiana. And they became important in Louisiana too. We also have the French and Spanish culture, okay? They brought the music, the food, the buildings, the celebration of Mardi Gras, okay? So before the French came, there was no New Orleans, all right? The French built New Orleans, okay? And you can see that they used their building styles that they learned in Europe to build New Orleans. So remember what the chickees looked like that the Native Americans built? Well, the French Quarter doesn't look anything like that. It looks more like a European city in France. And so the French actually brought the style of buildings that they have over to New Orleans and Louisiana with them, okay? Mardi Gras, that's another big one. It came from the French. The French brought Mardi Gras, okay? Remember, the French are Catholics. That's the church that they go to. They go to Catholic churches, all right? And part of Catholic churches is celebrating Mardi Gras. Now let's talk about Cajun culture. The Cajuns, when they came from Canada, remember they were kicked out of Canada and they came down. They brought their music with them, which we're going to hear in a little bit. And they brought their food with them. Here's an example. Here's a big bowl of gumbo. In fact, it's making me hungry. Let's skip to the section on food. Now, you may not realize, because you probably grew up in New Orleans, but New Orleans has basically the most unique set of dishes of any other city, okay? So here's a long list of foods that you can basically only get in New Orleans, unless maybe you're in some specialty restaurant that sells New Orleans style food. But everyone knows you can only get these in New Orleans. Gumbo, all right? Gumbo is actually a great example. You know the word gumbo? They're not sure if it came from a Native American word or an African word. We know that those cultures came and they mixed together and they shared a lot of ideas. And one of the ideas that popped out, gumbo. More New Orleans foods: jambalaya, boudin, beignets, red beans and rice, etouffee, po' boys and muffulettas, and crawfish and seafood. Add 3 of these foods to the plate that you have on part 1 of your worksheet. Now, once you've done that, let's look at this question down at the bottom. Why do you think seafood is an important part of Louisiana cooking, especially in South Louisiana? Why is seafood important to South Louisiana? Think about those natural resources and how people adapt to their environment to better survive. So people live near the ocean by the Gulf of Mexico. They're going to use it for food, and they fish in it to get their food out, okay? So people use what's around them. It's not that they just decided, oh, let's eat seafood and crawfish. That's what they had to work with, okay? All right, so you're going to be listening to some music, and you're going to be looking at the ingredients to different types of New Orleans music, okay? So you're going to be looking at jazz music. What are the different moods and instruments that are used to create jazz music? You're also going to do the same with Cajun music. You're going to listen to some Cajun music. What are the ingredients to Cajun music? What are the moods and ideas and instruments they use for Cajun music? All right. Use the next videos to finish parts 3 of your worksheet, and I'll see you next time.